Tonight, rejecting threats of an American takeover. The anger after Donald Trump repeats his call for Canada to become the 51st state.
Hell no.
Unrelenting taunts and the tipping point.
I'm in the process of renouncing my U.S. citizenship because it's so embarrassing.
I think Donald Trump just needs to...
As the incoming U.S. administration seizes on the Canadian political chaos. Fresh and forceful calls for Justin Trudeau to step down.
We're going to continue to insist that the Prime Minister does the right thing.
Hanging on as speculation swirls about another imminent shakeup. Why the GST holiday has turned out to be taxing on some shoppers and businesses.
Many arguments at the till. It has brought some of my staff to tears.
Plus, how the cost of living is pushing seniors to delay retirement. And the small loss that ended up being a big gain.
I thought, that sucks.
The accident.
Holy
leading to this breathtaking underwater video off BC's coast.
We just burst with glee, you know?
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. It appears Canadian efforts to placate the incoming U.S. president are not working. Hours after Ottawa unveiled a new billion-dollar-plus border plan to help stave off Donald Trump's tariff threats, Trump repeated his taunt of wanting to take over Canada. A declaration former Quebec Premier and Deputy Prime Minister Jean Charest said today was a wake-up call and that every Canadian should feel deeply offended by the remarks. Many, as CTV's Adrian Gabriel found out, already do.
True North strong and American. If President-elect Donald Trump had his way, perhaps.
Hell no.
From British Columbia,
Canada is an independent and very proud country.
Alberta,
I don't love it, and I don't think it's a funny joke.
to Northern Ontario.
And as a Canadian, I would like to see us all stick together.
We found no shortage of seething Canadians seeing red following Trump's reference to Canada as America's 51st state.
To turn around and just disrespect us like that, I just find it pretty disgusting.
It all started at a surprise dinner between Trump and Prime Minister Trudeau at Mar-a-Lago over U.S. Thanksgiving, when it's alleged that Trump first mused with Trudeau that Canada should join the U.S. if it doesn't want to face tariffs.
Breaking news, Trudeau and Trump don't get along well. And it started in Charleroi in the G7 meeting.
That was in 2018. And now the president-elect seems to have no issue repeatedly putting Canada on the hot seat. Today, Trump posted on Truth Social, many Canadians want Canada to become the 51st state. They would save massively on taxes and military protection. I think it is a great idea. We did find some Canadians open to entertaining the notion.
He's no dummy, and so let's see what he has to say.
In response, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith chimed in today, pointing out the strengths of the two nations working in lockstep while remaining separate, saying in part, I believe we have two of the greatest countries on earth. We have fought and bled together in many wars and built an incredible alliance and partnership. Though as Trump stirs the political pot, it's left Canadians guessing what he has on the menu.
We have to be living in a dystopian time right now for this to be even a conversation, to be honest.
There are those who believe it's dangerous to frame the president-elect's comments as a joke. Now, here at Canada's historic Fort York, walls similar to this one beside me were built back during the War of 1812 to keep the U.S. out. For those who are fantasizing about Trump's pitch, perhaps a history lesson here would be helpful. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
Trump's post came on the heels of what's been a chaotic week for the Prime Minister. CTV's Mike Couture on what could be next and why the NDP leader said today he is not committing to helping bring down the Liberal government.
While the future of the Prime Minister remains the biggest question on Parliament Hill, there is also speculation of a pre-Christmas cabinet shuffle before the end of the week.
Mr. Smith, have you been approached to take on the housing file by the Prime Minister?
I gotta figure that out later today or sometime next week.
Have you been approached?
Not exactly.
Toronto MP Nate Erskine-Smith had announced he wouldn't be running again for the Liberals. However, that calculation may have changed.
If there was an opportunity to make an even bigger difference on a really important file, maybe it's worth to, maybe it was worth to revisit the conversation about what the sacrifice looks like.
Clear path, please. Clear path.
It comes as calls for Justin Trudeau to step down are getting even more forceful. New Brunswick MP Wayne Long wrote a letter to caucus colleagues again.
We're going to continue to insist that the Prime Minister does the right thing for the party, for the country, and step down.
Anybody who's telling you that somehow the Liberal Party will do better under Justin Trudeau at this point, I don't know what numbers they're looking at.
But Trudeau supporters continue to stand by him. Is he still the right person for the job?
I have confidence in him because he's a strong leader.
While NDP leader Jagmeet Singh believes Trudeau should step down, he won't commit to toppling the minority Liberal government.
I'm not going to box myself in. But what I can tell people is there will be an election in 2025, and I'm ready to fight it.
Jean Chrétien's former chief of staff witnessed a previous power struggle between Chrétien and Paul Martin. It's why Eddie Goldenberg believes Liberals should rally behind Chrystia Freeland, especially as Donald Trump prepares to retake the Oval Office.
All the premiers, after she left, said that she was the one that they really needed as Captain Canada.
Goldenberg believes it's important for Trudeau to step down quickly so that a new leader can be in place by early in the new year. Omar?
All right, Mike, thank you. Well, just days into Ottawa's GST holiday, there are already signs the tax break is triggering confusion for shoppers and causing complications for businesses. CTV's Sarah Plowman tells us why.
Since the GST tax holiday launched, burger sales haven't skyrocketed, but no tax has reeled people in.
We've noticed a small uptick in our foot traffic and our delivery orders.
In Ontario, the LCBO has seen an uptick in alcohol sales. While some are seeing a boost, others are seeing confusion. The 2-month GST and HST holiday lifts the tax off of a list of items like restaurant meals, children's clothes, certain toys, but not all toys.
Lego has been a very big problem. I've actually lost some Lego sales over it.
The tax exemption applies to certain toys intended for kids under 14. Lego is sometimes for older age groups.
So we've had many arguments at the till over that. It has brought some of my staff to tears, which I just don't think is fair, especially at this time of year.
Amazon says it's honoring Canada's sales tax holiday, but when we went online to try to buy a Squishmallow, the GST or HST was applied. A spokesperson tells us it makes tools available for all of their sellers and expects them to comply. In Toronto, Vicky Hoy went to a dinner with friends last weekend. They were charged for HST.
The waitress was not aware of the program. And secondly, the hospitality manager didn't even bother to investigate.
The next day, the restaurant admitted the mistake and refunded her for the HST and gave her a gift card. The body representing small businesses calls it a messy start, adding some are asking if it's mandatory.
It is supposed to be mandatory, but basically the government, CRA and finance are saying we're not planning to rigidly enforce this, so do your best.
The government says if you've been charged GST or HST in air, ask for a refund. When it comes to compliance, Ottawa has indicated it will focus its efforts not on businesses putting in reasonable effort to comply, but rather those that willfully refuse. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
A BC police officer arrested and charged with sexual assault has died. Sergeant Matthew Ball took his own life hours after he was released from custody. Ball and Constable Ryan Johnston from the Central Saanich Police Force were accused of sexually assaulting the same woman in her mid-20s in incidents dating back to January 2019. Vancouver police began the covert investigation back in October. A Quebec man has pleaded guilty to trying to manufacture guns with a 3D printer and spreading hate about the Jewish community. Pascal Tribou first caught the eye of police in November 2023 when CSIS tipped off the RCMP about possible gun-related criminal activity. Their investigation linked him to an online channel promoting anti-Semitism and white supremacy. Police raided his home and found gun casings, 3D printers, and anti-Semitic propaganda. He'll be sentenced next year. And Montreal police are investigating an alleged arson attack on a synagogue overnight. It's the second time it has been targeted in just over a year. We are taking a closer look tonight at how more Canadians are being pushed into generational generosity to get by. As CTV's Alex Carper reports, that's forcing many Canadians to delay their retirement dreams.
The high cost of living has some Canadian seniors choosing to put retirement on hold to help out their children and grandchildren financially.
I quit my job and in order to raise my grandchildren and kind of stepped up to the plate when they needed me.
Ann Walsh said covering daily expenses to raise her 3 grandchildren has been hard at times, and she has not been able to put away any money for retirement.
It is a struggle, as you know, I'm not the only one out there that's struggling these days with the high rent costs and the food costs.
A similar scenario facing Catherine Williams. She and her husband Bruce have also postponed their retirement plans to financially help out multiple family members.
My daughter actually maxed out her credit cards because she was, didn't want to ask for help, but she was, rent went up and between that and the cost of living, and she had couple of pets at the time, so vet bills and just everything else. And the job, she was just making over minimum wage.
Liz Sharp and her husband Tom have been supporting their 25-year-old daughter through her post-secondary studies, all the while paying for living expenses, including rent and groceries.
We have pensions and, what have you, investments. So it isn't negative for us. We just see it as her getting an advance on her inheritance.
A recent survey from TD Bank Group shows that nearly 3 in 5 Canadian parents expect to financially support their children when they become adults. And another survey from Bloom Finance shows that 1 in 3 Canadian grandparents who support their children and grandchildren feel obligated to do so. Alex Carper, CTV News, Winnipeg.
An iconic maritime vessel has run into some serious trouble. Theodore Too, the tugboat based on the children's TV show, has partially sunk in Lake Ontario. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth on the rescue efforts.
Theodore Too is partially submerged in the harbor in St. Catharines, Ontario. The owner says the iconic vessel took in water while tied up at this dock. Theodore may now call this area its home, but it also has deep Nova Scotia roots. Launched in April of 2000, the tugboat is remembered as a must-see, popular tourist destination.
Theodore Tugboat was one of those Halifax icons that people who are young now remember when they were younger. Their visit to Halifax because of Theodore.
For years, the 20-meter tug was a prominent Halifax fixture before being sold and relocated in 2021.
Our children and grandchildren were very, very disappointed when it moved away from Halifax.
It connected people here and brought the kids along with it.
There were no injuries, no one was on board, but it's still not known what led to the tugboat's partial sinking. Dennis Campbell used to own Theodore Too. Campbell spoke with the current owner, and he's confident the vessel can be saved.
They're working on it. They're going to get Theodore raised up out of the water and get Theodore back to top shape.
Campbell says it's sad to see the tugboat in this state, but he's hopeful Theodore Too will soon be repaired and seaworthy. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Coming up, rental dreams turn into nightmares.
I think I'm getting scammed here. This does not feel right.
The fight to get fraudsters to pay. In tonight's final part of W5's investigation into a cross-Canada landlord scam, John Woodward reveals how some provinces are letting convicted criminals who owe millions to victims off the hook.
This suburban home was supposed to provide Daniel Rasanyagam some extra rental income. Instead, he lost a lot of money when one tenant came in.
My heart was broken.
He said that tenant, Colleen Hull, didn't pay rent for months and was surprised to learn about what she was up to when she was there.
So she was posing as the landlord?
Yeah, she posed as the landlord.
But you're the landlord?
I'm the landlord, yeah.
She was posing as you?
Yeah.
Posed to would-be tenant Les Sowunmi.
I think I'm getting scammed here. This does not feel right.
He paid Hull a $750 deposit for a home that was never actually available. One of many would-be tenants, Hull was convicted of 20 counts, including fraud. One thing the judge ordered, restitution, meaning that Hull was supposed to pay back the money she took, including to Suwunmi. But there seems to be a problem.
You haven't seen the money, I mean.
Nope, not a dime.
We got copies of all of Colleen Hull's restitution orders. You can see them here, $700, $1,400. It adds up over several Ontario courts to almost $70,000. And the courts tell us she hasn't paid a cent. It's not just Hull, it's a problem right across the country. For example, Vancouver care aide Anna Shamdal, who defrauded the elderly, still owes about $63,000. Edmonton area fraudster Marie-Louise Laframboise owes more than $1.2 million. Nothing paid. North of Toronto, romance scammer Celine Damji has paid nothing of a $767,000 restitution order.
They're big numbers, and they certainly make a difference to survivors.
Dr. Benjamin Roebuck is the federal ombudsperson for victims of crime. His office has called out a patchwork system of collections that sometimes leaves it up to the victim to go to civil court.
I think victims and survivors who aren't being paid are asking why there isn't a mechanism to follow up, and why it's not being tracked, and why it's not being enforced, and why it's left up to them to try and contact the person who harmed them.
We called all the provinces and territories to understand the national picture. Only 4 provinces and 1 territory told us they fully track restitution payments. 4 partially track the orders or payments, and 4 said they don't track at all. Of the provinces that did track the money, the proportion of orders that were paid were as high as 71% in Saskatchewan and as low as 8% in Nova Scotia. Of about $255 million in restitution ordered across Canada in the last 5 years, only about $7 million has been confirmed to have been repaid. The highest dollar value in Ontario at $213 million. The province couldn't say how much has been paid. It's one of a majority of provinces that say if victims want to enforce these judgments, they have to go to civil court themselves. We asked Ontario's Solicitor General if those victims could use some help.
Would you consider using your ministry to help victims of crime get some of the money they're owed?
We are doing everything that we can to work with our stakeholders and with our partners across the ministries to make sure that, we are there to support victims of crime.
If you're taking it that seriously, doesn't it bother you that if someone's a victim of crime from a fraud and a judge orders restitution payment to them, the fraudster just decides to scam the courts again and refuse to pay?
I'll be happy to discuss with my colleague, the AG.
Suwunmi says he's long since given up on getting the money.
I'll be surprised if I ever see it.
In a sense, let down by a convicted fraudster and the justice system, too.
Fascinating reporting. And in a special follow-up tomorrow, John takes a look at what one province is doing to pay victims back and what it means for the rest of Canada. Still ahead, the surprising way a BC man captured this astounding video and how he shocked even himself. For the first time, carnivorous squirrels have been discovered in California. New photos released as part of a study show California ground squirrels hunting, killing, and eating voles. The squirrels are typically known to eat plant-based foods. And further north up the west coast, a BC man who dropped his camera into the ocean accidentally caught a big surprise. CTV's Adam Sawatsky has the breathtaking video.
A bit of overcast and calm water.
Before it turned into an extraordinary day,
Went down to the dock.
Peter Maris says it began being quite ordinary.
This is the 360 camera.
The underwater videographer was trying to see if he could tie this new camera to that old fishing pole and reel it in and out of the ocean when the line broke.
I thought, that sucks.
But before Peter could dive down to fetch it, a flock of birds and a herd of sea lions started feasting on a school of anchovies.
A little bit like a National Geographic moment.
Until the unexpected arrival of a humpback whale turned the moment into a lot like one.
Oh, man, it was thrilling.
And that's when Peter's wife and partner at Rendezvous Dive Adventures, Kathy Johnson, started recording the whale joining the hunt too.
I mean, anything that size, that close, it almost took your breath away.
Their dog, Sam, was equally astounded. And after 2 hours of watching in wonder what was unfolding above the water, Peter retrieved that camera that had sunk and was shocked to see what had been recorded under it.
And we're going like, oh my Lord, this is a once in a lifetime.
We just burst with glee, you know? Watched it over and over again just because we couldn't believe what we were seeing.
And while the couple was struck by how gracefully and thoughtfully the big whale swam around their dock in such shallow water, they were also filled with gratitude that fishing rod experiment ultimately failed.
Failure is just another step towards success.
So why get frustrated when things don't go according to plan, they say, because you just might find things turn out even better than you could have conceived.
One way to get amazing things is if you take the risk. And so you got to try because you just never know.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News.
That lesson's so true. Still ahead, who made the list of extraordinary Canadians set to receive the country's highest honors? The newest appointees to the Order of Canada were revealed today. And as CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin tells us, this year's list includes a Hollywood superstar and a beloved former CTV broadcaster.
Woo! Benevolence is thirsty work.
Order of Canada honors go to the actor behind the Deadpool mask, Ryan Reynolds, in this video raising money for Toronto's Sick Kids Hospital. He's being invested as an officer. And honors, too, to a renowned scientist working to educate people about evidence-based science. Joe Schwartz is the founding director of McGill's Office for Science and Society.
It's an extremely pleasing feeling because, you realize that your work has been appreciated.
This highlights the diverse achievements of those now named to the order that has recognized extraordinary contributions to the nation since 1967. Former NFL player and doctor Laurent Duvernay-Tardif
Super Bowl champion, man,
is also receiving a nod. In 2020, he walked away from the offensive line of the Kansas City Chiefs and headed to the front lines of the fight against COVID in a long-term care home.
I again say thank you.
Former CTV News anchor in the Maritimes and host of telethons, Steve Murphy, is also recognized for his work.
I must tell you, it was a phone call I never expected to receive, and that may explain why when I did get the call from Rideau Hall a few weeks back, I was skeptical, I think. And I wondered if maybe somebody was pulling my leg, because it's a considerable honor for me.
I don't think that the military realized the damage that they've caused us.
There's also a Canadian Armed Forces veteran, Diane Pitt, who fought for those wronged by the LGBT purge of the 1950s to the mid-1990s. And a member of the beloved Rankin family, Heather Rankin.
Hi, I'm Heather Rankin.
An icon of Cape Breton music. They're all to receive their medals inscribed with the Order of Canada motto, "They desire a better country in months to come." Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News.
A talented group and a special congrats to Steve. That's a snapshot of this Wednesday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.